Hey everybody, this is Joel Hoekstra from Whitesnake, and you're listening to The Rock Pit.
I mean, the real main reason we're here is because of the album Dying to Live. When I heard it, Frontiers, they're a great label, but sometimes they put out a lot of product, and you think, okay, here's an album by a guitarist who's just joined Whitesnake. It's probably going to be a good album, but I wasn't expecting anything quite as good. No disrespect, but it's fantastic. I mean, it's one of those rock albums where it's got everything. It's got the songs. It's got the power. It's got the immediacy. It's actually really, really very good, and it's probably going to be one of our favourite albums of the year. Was it a long time in the making?
It really was. It was from the time I wrote the very first riff till it'll be released is about 2 years. So it was in the works long before I even auditioned for Whitesnake. And it's been a real labor of love. I did it really quite different than a lot of the Frontiers records you're probably referring to. I mean, number one, I wrote everything on it. So it wasn't just a grab for the cash and have somebody else write the material and get some names and put it out. For me, I feel very connected to it. I think it's an album that people have wanted from me for a while. The fans that have known me from Night Ranger and Rock of Ages and Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and now, of course, Whitesnake. So, because, I had 3 solo albums out years ago that were totally different, man. Like, 2 of them were instrumental, like fusion albums, and one was a fingerstyle acoustic album. So, totally different stuff. And so, like I said, I think this is something that the fans have wanted for a while, and it's something I wanted to do for a while. And I really set out on my own to do it. I didn't really set out to do it with Frontiers. I produced half the album fully on my own before I took it to Frontiers. And I think that helped me to really have my own vision on it. I didn't have to really worry so much about if they were going to sign it, then that meant they liked what was there. So I feel like it's a really good melodic hard rock album. I would describe it as Dio-ish at its heaviest and Foreigner-ish at its lightest. But like I said, it was a real labor of love for me. I probably lost money really making the album, honestly. It was a lot of work, and I just hope people will give it a shot and check it out, because I definitely busted my butt to hopefully do something special.
Oh no, it's great, and we'll take a look at some of my favourite tracks, I guess, shortly. With the title though, Joel Hoekstra's 13, it makes it sound like more of a band than a solo project. Is there any chance you're going to be able to take this on the road, even in just for a few short dates, maybe, or as a support?
It was an interesting dilemma to have with the title, because I felt like a solo album was a little misleading. To call it Joel Hoekstra would lead people to believe there was lots of fancy guitar playing, and to me this sounds very much just like a band. It sounds just like good hard rock songs. So I thought a side project name was the most appropriate thing, and that leaves the possibilities open for the future. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to support the album any way, shape, and form that I can. So the first step is obviously getting it out there and seeing what kind of reception it gets. But I'm very excited. I mean, the feedback I'm getting from people, they're extremely positive about it, like yourself. And I'm actually getting calls and emails from promoters already looking to book it. So I suppose we'll just have to take that step by step, but I'm certainly interested in supporting it any way I can.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a dilemma. I mean, it's hard out there for promoters at the moment, sort of putting together bills and taking gambles, I guess, on the non-big name bankers that they put out there. I mean, it's funny that you come back to the States every year and you see the same, I guess, what Americans refer to as heritage acts out there playing the same sets year after year. But I guess that's what sells, and I guess that for me is the disappointing thing about the industry at the moment as far as rock music is concerned. There's so many great bands out there, so many great albums like this one, and we may never ever because of the way things are with the industry at the moment, we may not ever get the chance to hear them live.
Yeah. Well, I think that comes down to support for it. But that being said, I don't need to have that be the thing that's going to pay my bills, so to speak. You know, it could be a labor of love for me in that department as well. But it's about finding the right scenario, and I think that I could potentially support the album live without having each and every one of these guys that played on the album, even though the lineup is completely amazing. I think, you know, it would come down to maybe having a couple of the key players to make it all work.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about particularly the two vocalists you've got on there as well. How do you come to know? Well, obviously you work in Trans-Siberian Orchestra with one of the vocalists, but how do you come to know Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff and I met. Finally, I guess we met at Melodic Rock Fest, the very first one, when I was playing with Scrap Metal and he was playing with his own band.
Okay.
But we really got to know each other at Trans-Siberian Orchestra rehearsals. And Russell Allen, of course, has joined up with Trans-Siberian Orchestra a couple years ago. So that's really where I've gotten to know those guys. I mean, I think they're two of the best singers in rock today. I'm thrilled to have them on this album. I mean, I'm definitely a lucky guy in that department. And obviously to have a rhythm section like Vinny Appice and Tony Franklin is pretty ridiculous too.
Yeah.
It's like Dio on steroids, man. And Derek Sherinian, I can't say enough about how tastefully he played on this. There wasn't a lot of room left for him, to be honest. I did a lot of guitar tracks, and by the time I went to Derek, it was really, he was overqualified in a lot of ways. I mean, he only got to play a couple of solos, but man, he just did such a great job of playing all the right parts and playing so tastefully, great sounds and nothing cheesy, and just did a great job. So all of a sudden I had this amazing lineup on this thing, and I never really set out to make it like that. I didn't really set out to make a quote-unquote super band album. It just came together that the very first people I asked all said yes.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic sound, beautifully produced record, and as I said, some great tracks on there. It must be hard. I mean, one of the things that struck me most about it was, I mean, my favourite track on there pretty much changes every day. I played it again just before we called up, and I thought, wow, that's a really cool song. I think that's my favourite today. But what we believe, listening to what a few other people think as well, the one with the duet on there with it is Chloe, isn't it?
Yeah, Chloe Lowry
singing on there is a wonderful way to sort of close the album. I always like a closing track that throws up a few questions. What's going to happen next? I thought that was a beautiful way to end. But some of the songs really do have that sort of Whitesnake-y, I guess, foreigner feel to them as well. And as you mentioned before, some of the heavier ones on there have got that sort of Dio vein as well. I mean, Opener, Say Goodbye to the Sun. Was that one of the earlier tracks you wrote? I mean, I'm trying to work out how this came together. Was that sort of that's the sort of heavier side, I guess, of the album?
Yeah, the front half was written riff first. So like there was full riffs and song structure before Russell even came on board, and so that Russell sang the front half of the album. So all those were basically written to the music itself. So a lot of that stuff is heavier, and then Jeff, I decided to have a couple more AOR-ish type tracks, like Until I Left You and Start Again, and What We Believe I thought he'd be great on. So I kind of wrote more for what the album needed at that point in time, if that makes sense, for the back half of the album. I didn't want to just have it be like a one-dimensional album. I like it to have some versatility and diversity to it. But I did want to keep it within a framework enough that it had a flow to it and it had a sound, something that you could tell it all belongs on the same album. But you know, one of my pet peeves is when you get somebody's album and all 12 tracks sound exactly alike. And
Yeah.
It's like, well, what's the point? You could have just put out one song and we would have gotten the gist of things. So I really wanted to have a bit of diversity while keeping it all stylistically appropriate. Like I said, the framework was kind of the Dio-ish at its heaviest and Foreigner-ish at its lightest, and a couple of the tracks that became bonus tracks really lived a bit too much on the fringe for my taste. Like Kill or Be Killed got a little too heavy, and the Never Want, the Japanese bonus track, was a little too bluesy. So it started to become a little too diverse with those on there. So they just became bonus tracks, and I tried to hone the sound and make sure the album had a cool flow and everything.
Yeah. I mean, the track listing's particularly good. I mean, there's some songs on there as well which would be of real interest to Whitesnake fans as well, especially if the band is going to look at recording a new album. And I guess that's the big question out there at the moment. Was the Purple album the last album for Whitesnake? So I don't know if we can enjoy
Well, I got to let David fill everybody in. I can tell you I just got back from working with him for the last 10 days.
Wow.
So I was just out at the studio working with him. So he's got a couple projects in mind, and he's definitely, I think, very excited about this lineup of Whitesnake. He feels like we're on to something magical. So I think he's really looking to have a really active next year or two. And from there, I pretty much have to let David kind of fill everybody in on his vision and specifics. But it's good news for all of us that I think he's looking to be really active.
Oh, it sounds very promising. And with songs on your album like Long for the Days, which is the one that I guess particularly reminded me of your new band, it's going to be great things coming forward. I think if we do see new material there, it's quite interesting. I think how you replaced Doug there in. There's sort of like some of the similarities that come together. You replaced Doug in Whitesnake. You replaced Reb in, I guess, in Night Ranger originally as well. Doug played in the whole show over in Vegas there. You play in Rock of Ages over here. Where was it that David actually got to hear of you? Is he a Night Ranger fan? Had you actually played on stage with the band before?
And Night Ranger opened for Whitesnake in 2013, I think it was. And it was 2013 that Night Ranger opened for Whitesnake. I think it was like the Tucson area or something like that. It was in Arizona, I remember. And when I heard the position was available, I put out some feelers and didn't hear anything back at first, but I think a lot of people were recommending me to David, and he was checking me out on YouTube a lot, and that really led to us meeting at the end of May of 2014 and kind of having a proper audition, so to speak.
Yeah, that's great. And good luck with the band. I mean, we get to see Whitesnake in this part of the world quite a bit. They've been over a few times in recent years, so hopefully we'll get to see you guys. I
know there's been some whispers about it, so I got my fingers crossed. Believe me, because I've never made it down there, believe it or not. So that's another really great thing for me being a part of Whitesnake, is getting around the globe a little bit more and playing some places that I hadn't been. That's it's a great thing, you know.
Yeah, we never got to see Night Ranger down here, so hopefully we'll get to see Whitesnake again. I mean, it's such a great region. You've got, obviously, Japan's only a stone's throw away, really. It's only a few hours. Singapore's very close as well. So I know a lot of those places Whitesnake have played in the past. So to sort of get over here is not too much of a jump. As far as your career is concerned, we've just got a couple of questions about that. You've pretty much played with some wonderful players over the years. What was the most surreal moment? Was it filling in for Mick Jones in Foreigner? That must have been interesting.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was also a little terrifying because that began on really 24 hours notice. So I really had to learn their set and fly and do the gig. really within a 24-hour period. It was pretty daunting. The scariest part was that Night Ranger was playing before them at the time. It was Night Ranger, Foreigner, Journey on that tour. Mm-hmm. So I was, I had just done all the shedding in a day for Foreigner, and I knew I was right about to go on with them, but I was on stage with Night Ranger playing their set. If you can imagine how, how stressed out I was at that point. I was going like, oh my gosh, hopefully this is going to go well. But yeah, it was a great opportunity. Obviously an honor to fill in for Mick. He's such a great musician. And and that's a great lineup of guys right there, the current Foreigner lineup.
Yeah, we saw them recently. They're over here last year, and they put on some great shows. So
Kelly Hansen is just over the top. Amazing. Wow. Yeah, as a singer.
Yeah, he's fantastic. Love his earlier work as well. I mean, I've been following him for a few years now. As far as your influences go, I mean, what was it that first made you pick up that guitar? That's a question I always like to ask guitarists. Was there a defining moment, or were you just surrounded by music, or is there something that you heard?
Well, my parents are classical musicians, so there was always music around the house. They had me playing piano and cello at a really young age, and I wasn't all that much into it. I just wanted to be a baseball player like most little boys, And it was really hearing AC/DC Back in Black at the age of 11 that made me want a guitar and start to play. And thankfully, because of that, I've never had to make any serious career decisions in my life.
Yeah, you've played with some wonderful people over the years, and we just touched on a few names before. But who's been the most inspiring person you've met so far along the way?
Oh man, that's a difficult one. I mean, I have a lot of respect for all the artists, as you said, heritage acts or legacy acts. I mean, I've had the opportunity to share the stage with a lot of my childhood heroes or my teenage heroes. So I wouldn't want to necessarily pick or select any one person, and it would almost be a slight to the others. But I've really been honored to have any of the playing opportunities I've had. It's a pretty difficult thing to build a career as a musician. So I feel really lucky to have done so, and hopefully I can keep on with that and make it through. That's pretty much my definition of success at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting names on your CV as well. I mean, Big Brother and the Holding Company you've played with, the Turtles. I was thinking, wow, what a great band they were. How on earth did that come about?
Yeah, well, when I moved to New York City, it was to play in a show about Janis Joplin. So that ties in the Big Brother and the Holding Company thing. The music director was the guitar player from that band, and he would ask me to tour with them on occasion. And as far as the Turtles go, one of the guys that subbed for me on the show, on that Janis Joplin show, played guitar for the Turtles. And so at first he had me fill in for him, and then actually I ended up joining the band and touring with them for a couple of years, which is a great experience for me in terms of learning to do fly dates and just kind of learning to be a pro. And I think a great experience in terms of learning to play a gig that wasn't a lot about lead guitar. So that's always it's a good experience as a guitar player, I think, to go through things like that, because you learn the gig isn't always about you or always about your proficiency on guitar. A lot of times it just comes down to being a pro.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great career you've had so far, and as I say, things with Whitesnake now, hopefully, are going to kick off big time. I mean, always good to see a Whitesnake tour, and it's always good to see a band that doesn't mind playing new material. I mean, sometimes you go out there and you'll go and see a band. One year you'll see them a couple of years later and they'll be playing the same hits again. But
the same exact thing. Yeah. Well, I think it's been a really fun. We just finished up the opening leg of the Purple tour. The first 3 months were here in North America, and it was really well received. There was not a single negative review about the tour, and David was singing great, and what an honor to have Tommy Aldridge behind me playing drums, and to play in a guitar team with Reb Beach is just super cool too, man. What a great guitar player and great guy. So I think, in obviously those that don't know, we released the Purple album, which is a a reimagining of what David did with Deep Purple in Mark III and Mark IV. So being able to get out on the road and not only have the Whitesnake catalog, all those great hits, but to be able to pull from the Deep Purple catalog and put some of those in really made for a kick-ass set. The band pretty much every night was just getting on the bus going like, man, I love playing our set. And everybody, yeah, me too. It was just made for a really good vibe out there.
It's one of those sort of like things where you think, wow. When I first heard the news of the Purple album, I thought, wow, how can he dare to do that? It's like one of those things to a lot of people, that sort of music's sacred. But I was really, really surprised and very pleasantly surprised that it sounded so really good. I mean, it was like a sort of Whitesnake version of Deep Purple, and I think the thing that surprised a lot of people out there, especially a lot of reviewers, is that it did sound so damn good. So a lot of people treat these songs as sacred, especially when they mean a lot to them, but it's one of the few times I've heard it pulled off so well.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I think a big key in that was obviously not trying to do a note-for-note re-record type of thing, and just treat it freely and enjoy the process and just sort of take it as it comes in terms of what people's opinions were. But I mean, all you can really do is do the best. I looked at it like a really great, fun opportunity. Number one, to get acclimated in playing in Whitesnake, and number two, just to be able to do my own thing with these great, proven songs.
Yeah. I mean, it's worked wonderfully well, and your new album, as we said, probably our favourite at the moment. It's so hard to pick. Never Say Never, I think, for us at the moment. Can you tell us a little bit about that song? Okay. You're surprised.
Well, obviously that's one of the first half, one of the Russell Allen songs. So. Like I said, the music was pretty much in place. That particular one, I did kind of write the chorus in my mind first, the basic hook of it, and the vocal melody. So what I would do a lot of times, like with Russell, I had the scratch guitars going to a click, or actually with Vinny Appice, I should say. So I'd have the scratch rhythm guitars to a click, and then I'd play the vocal melody on top of it with guitar and even some harmonies to give it a real feel of a song. Vinny would play on it, then Tony, and then Russell sang on it. And, Russell just brings everything to another level, man. He's such an amazing vocalist. I mean, whatever you play from either one of these guys, it just, they bring it to another level with their amazing singing. So, and obviously with me writing this record and making it very much about the songs, that's very key.
Yeah. I mean, as I say, I can't encourage people more to go out and check this record out. I mean, I think anyone who knows the sort of music that we review up on the Rock Pit will absolutely love this. I've just got one final question for you, Joel, if that's okay, and it's the question we ask everyone. It's the easiest question of the interview. What is the meaning of life?
Well, I think that's up to each individual, isn't it?
I think so.
I feel like I was put on Earth to play guitar, so I'm just going to try and do that at a high level, and hopefully we'll give the fans their hard-earned money's worth, and also be seen as a decent guy in the end by my friends and family.
That's so cool. Thank you so much. I know we went on a bit. Thank you so much for giving up your time for us this morning, Joel. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, no. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time to do it.
Thanks for making such a great album, mate.